Hey, what's up? This is Antwon here. Techwear is in many ways a very winter-centric style, what with the heavy use of black, rain-appropriate clothing, heavy layering, a lot of warmth, kind of protection as well. But unless you're living in the UK, it's not winter anymore, it's spring. So what exactly can you do? Do you keep wearing that same winter-appropriate stuff, even though maybe it's not quite right for the conditions, or do you mix things up, adapt that style a little bit? I'm going to go for option B here, else this would be a very quick video. So we're going to look at things which are a little bit more transitional in nature, things which can bridge that gap between where the season starts hotting up, you get into summer, you really have to start thinking about material and gear that's going to keep you cool, but stuff that's super heavy and black centric and rain gear and stuff is maybe not quite as useful as it once was a few months ago. So we're going to go head to toe and think about exactly what kinds of ways that we can change techwear outfits into things which are a little bit more spring ready, whilst retaining some of that traditional techwear style. So first up, what's on your head or face? Traditionally, you'd have a nice big ninja hood, probably some kind of balaclava or face mask as well. Well, you might still want a hood, but it's not quite as necessary perhaps, because it's not going to be as cold, it's not going to be as wet either. But what you might find instead is that you might get a little bit of sunshine in this spring weather. There are definitely appropriate hats for these kinds of scenarios. If you want to go for the traditional techwear, more hype kind of side of things, ACG had a couple that came out last year, although my understanding is that the prices have gone a little bit crazy these days. There are alternatives to that as well. You can get Legionnaire hats on Amazon for pretty cheap, and they look pretty similar to the ACG 3-in-1. Some bucket hats can look pretty good as well, depending on their style, and of course even some standard baseball caps, when used in the right kind of outfits, can still look pretty good. If you wanted to go the branded route, I'm sure someone like Y3 would have quite an appropriate, vaguely techie looking baseball hat, and I'm sure there are other versions as well. Maybe someone like Riot Division has some kind of hat which would look pretty cool. Good thing about baseball hats, of course, is that you can still wear a hood over the top of them. So if you feel like the weather might be changing between sunny and rainy conditions, then a baseball hat isn't actually going to hurt your flexibility, only increase it if you find yourself in harsh sunlight and you want to protect your face a little bit. On the face side of things, I don't think it's necessary to wear any face protection at all. It's certainly going to be too warm for a proper balaclava or a net gaiter, for example. If you really are desperate to go for that ninja anonymity style, you can go for a kind of lighter surgical mask, one of those hygiene masks instead. That would be more appropriate, and again, it's unlikely to make your face super sweaty. What about the top half? Well, a super heavy jacket or loads and loads of thick insulating layers are probably not going to be needed here because it's going to be too hot. And a full black outfit is not necessarily going to be 100% appropriate for spring either. So what do we do to mix things up here? Luckily, I do think that there are quite a few different options. First of all, if you want to keep kind of as close to that traditional techwear look as possible, you can just go for something that's a little bit lighter than a traditional, Acronym J28 or something big and heavy. And that would be in the form of a lighter windbreaker or a bomber jacket, something like that. There are definitely options out there that can retain some of that techwear style while it's not quite looking like you're drowning in fabric. And since you might not be that likely to need a jacket at all, you could opt for something that's super lightweight, has some kind of sling functionality, or can just pack away into a very small space, which means that if you go out and then you decide that you're not going to need it, you can just roll it up, put it in a bag, or just carry it on your back, something like that, just so that you're not too weighed down by having to wear a jacket all the time. If you're thinking a jacket isn't really for you, but you still want to keep that quite layered style, you can do stuff like wearing multiple t-shirts or a slightly longer t-shirt under a hoodie, just to build that same kind of layering style that you often see on techwear, but something that's a little bit lighter than wearing a full hardshell. Those sorts of options can still give you a little bit of bulk, and you can go for products which have some kind of techwear aesthetic, even if they're not that functional. You've got hoodies out there that have those straps on them, or pockets or zips, something like that, just so that you have some kind of chance to get that aesthetic across without having to bother with a hard shell or really look at too many performance fabrics at all. This is also a chance, of course, to get on that street tech hype. You don't really have to use any kind of techwear brands at all, and instead borrow something more from streetwear circles. Cavempt, for example, would be a really nice choice for this. You can mix Cavempt on the top half, then some more techwear branded stuff on the bottom half, so that you've still got that sort of cyberpunk influence that techwear definitely has a connection to, but then you're not specifically using hard shells or something that's super heavy on the top half. You can focus just on wearing exactly the number of layers layers or the bulk that you need. The other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of Techwear jackets are not actually very warm at all. That means you could even go for a traditional Techwear product if you wanted, but something that changes the colour a little bit from that all black into something that's a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more appropriate for the spring season. Personally, I've got my eye on this rather nice CP Company jacket. It has quite a similar look to a J28, to be honest. In terms of that Techwear aesthetic, it still has a very strong resemblance to those traditional styles, but with a super bright colour, so it's much less wintry than a lot of its counterparts. While we're on the top half, we can also talk about bags. I feel like bags here are going to be pretty important to retaining that aesthetic, because chances are you're going to be losing that traditional Techwear jacket, so you need something to help get that look across. So I feel like something a little bit lighter, a bit more nimble is appropriate here. Perhaps a messenger bag over a backpack, just in case the weather does heat up a little bit. If you're wearing a backpack, you might get a bit of a sweaty bag. Whereas I feel like messengers, or one of those small side bags, they have a little bit of a more casual sort of vibe and probably look better with a t-shirt or something that's not too heavy. I know from my own wardrobe that one of those Orbit Gear Axis straps armed with one of their messenger bags or one of the little mods would be pretty good for the top half, and you could get away with wearing something quite plain because that strap with all of its details kind of does a pretty good job of getting the aesthetic across. So what about the bottom half, the pants side of things? Well, the good news is, in my opinion, you don't really need to focus quite so much on technical fabrics or on DWR treatment, because it is going to be less likely to rain, or if you are caught out in rain, hopefully it's not going to be quite as bad, and whatever you're wearing on the top half, or if you have some kind of packable jacket that you can get out and then use, is going to do a lot of the work for you. So you don't need to rely as much on keeping your bottom half dry. That means you potentially have access to some more affordable gear. Things like those Uniqlo U wide cargos that just came out. Yeah, they're not really that water resistant or anything, but I feel like they're going to be quite appropriate here, particularly when you consider that they use quite a few different colours. So again, you have the opportunity to keep that Techwear style, but mixing up the palette a little bit. And because they are wide cargos, they are a little bit loose as well, and a little bit more of a relaxed fit, so you're not going to be dying, like sweating too much by having material that's too close to you. There are other options, of course, if you do want to stick with the traditional Techwear brand route. I think the ACG woven pants could work nicely for more transitional weather, because you have the option of turning those up. They're a little bit cropped anyway, and they're a bit of a relaxed fit. And I want to say the Acronym P23 as well. I think those are the quite wide and cropped ones. Again, those just allow a little bit more room to breathe, I think, than like a P10, something that's very, very aggressive. I feel like I've seen some cropped stuff from some of the bigger sportswear brands as well. I feel like Adidas have some quite minimal looking 7/8 pants. Shorts with leggings as well I think can be quite appropriate. Maybe it's going to be too cold to just wear shorts by themselves, but if you're wearing the leggings as well, then you kind of get the best of both worlds, and I think you're pushing quite an agile, like exercise ready aesthetic as well. Kind of reminds me of like a bike racer or something. And again, it has that relationship with performance basically, which Techwear does kind of take inspiration from. And I think that sort of thing is quite cool and quite easy to associate with the more cyberpunk type area of things. I spoke a couple of weeks ago about Mirror's Edge, for example, and it's definitely going more towards that sort of area of the Techwear spectrum. But anyway, on to shoes. I've repeated myself a few times already, but again, I don't think water resistance is something to focus on quite as much as perhaps you would do in the winter time. That's not to say that it's worth forgetting about entirely. It is still possible it's going to rain in the springtime, of course, but maybe move away from those very heavy duty sneaker boots. Even the very minimal looking slip-on Vans or sock darts, both of those are used quite frequently in Techwear, and I think are probably more appropriate for spring weather than those very heavy duty boots or sneaker boots that you might see in those very winter appropriate fits. The other sorts of things to consider are Nike Flyknit shoes. I think are really good for this because they are quite breathable. They can let heat escape if it does heat up a little bit, and a lot of Flyknit shoes have quite a futuristic look, and because Flyknit is a very technologically advanced way of constructing shoes, I think that kind of thing works pretty well. So if we put all of those things together, I think we're left with quite a few ideas which can help us change those outfits up from those very solid winter appropriate things into something a little bit more transitional. So those are my thoughts really on adapting techwear style in a way that can fit the spring season a little bit better. I appreciate I didn't really talk too much about the performance fabric side of things, purely because, as I mentioned, I don't think it's quite as important for this season as it is for winter or for summer. As we get a little bit into that warm weather, I will definitely be talking more about those performance fabrics and styles and kinds of clothes that can keep you really cool, but maybe still trying to put that techwear aesthetic across. And that has been everything, so stay hydrated and thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Shout out to Waru, nice anime avatar, consider this your shout out. And shout out to Average Boobs, I will indeed be reviewing the L House jacket. They were kind enough to send me 2 of them, in fact, so there will be a bit of a double review coming up either next week or the week after. Probably next week, actually. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see some more, there'll be some links going up near the head, floating around there somewhere, and if you made it to the end of this one, you want to catch some more in the future, then don't forget, ding-a-ling, ring the bell, hit that button over there, and you can be subscribed.